Hey, welcome to the First Layer. This is Ask for Help, your weekly live stream from myself. I'm Richard, and that guy over there, that's Brian, who's drinking away.
I feel like I'm the guy who should be asking for help this week.
No, that would be me.
No, we both had printer nightmares, so I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Yes,
Okay.
That Benchy I printed looked like garbage. That was not at all the slicer settings. That was 100% the printer. In fact, I've got the ugly bugger right in front of me here right now. And
oh, yuck.
Yeah. So it had some vibrations. I've had some issues with one of the stepper drivers that I've swapped out right now behind me. I've been trying to print a Benchy before the show to show you guys the same settings, but I mean, this is another one that came out pretty darn good on that machine with that Prusa setting, and that's, the ironing features and all that. For those who stuck to the end of the video, thank you, and I'll take the criticism. Hey, Rex Waldy, thank you so much for the super chat. Did we get the button fixed?
No, we did not. I haven't had time this week, so we've got a sexy voice in the background. Jerry's doing it.
We're going to have to get like something about me talking deep tone and her having like whisper, right? Like a super chat. Oh, yeah.
All right, seeing as you were showing
Happy Sunday, everybody.
Thank you very much again, Rex, for that super chat. This is printed in the white from our friends over at Matter 3D. Blah, blah, blah. Da-da-da-da. Doesn't that look gorgeous?
Oh, that is gorgeous.
That is freaking awesome. It's a gorgeous model. Came out really nice. That Matter 3D PLA is now available. I believe we've got something in our chat that we can post for now. They're migrating over to their new site, and we just got a message from them this morning. Let me just grab it here. I've got it in my chat.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've got it here for a direct link to the shop store, yeah.
Okay.
The main site's a WordPress thing, so they're working on it, but we've been given permission to go ahead and forward the store URL, and you'll find it right in the chat.
Did it come up? I didn't see it.
I don't know. I posted it with my personal one. Maybe... No, I should have as a moderator. It should show it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is. So if you guys would like to go ahead and check that out, Matter 3D Filament, the highest grade PLA I've ever used. I'm going to tell you that straight up. It uses a lot more original material, or virgin material as we like to call it, to obtain their colors, and you're going to have to print this a little hotter. So what I would suggest is that you do a temp tower. And do I have one on my messy desk right now? No, I do not.
No,
I have one kicking around. Oh,
I did cleaning yesterday, so I did the temp tower purge.
There's a temp tower right there. So make sure you guys do one of these. We're going to be coming up with our own that will be on the Matter 3D website. Does Matter 3D sell ASA? What brand do you recommend for ASA? They do not as of yet, but they are going to be expanding their line throughout the year, so watch for it. And what ASA do I recommend? I really haven't used any, so I can't really recommend any to you.
Yeah, I don't work with much either. I don't know. I would say
that a styrene-based plastic?
No, I don't believe it is ASA. Again, we have very little experience with ASA. We've mostly done PET-G, ABS, PLA, and then a little bit of HIPS. So, yeah, sorry we can't answer that one, but if you do find some success with a brand, let us know. Yes,
absolutely. The one thing that Cam D is asking is there's 6 products total. Right now there are more coming. Just bear with them. They are a startup, and there are going to be some bumps in the road as we go along. But I would say that Amin is in the chat today. You can see him there, Amin Baines. Everybody say hi to Amin. It is styrene, Make It 3D says.
Oh, okay. I don't like dealing with the styrenes for flammability and that sort of thing. I mean, we can go into that aspect area, but I don't use it day to day. That's why I stick with the polylactic acids and the PETs.
Yeah, I like the PETs myself, and PLA as well. So those are probably my 2 favorites. All right, let's get into our only question this week. So it's going to be wide open for you guys in the chat this week. This one comes from Stephen Carvalis. He says, "Good morning, Richard and Brian." He says, "First of all, I'm asking for an immediate response to this. This came in on Wednesday. I was down for 2 days with migraines, so I do apologize that we didn't get back to you earlier." But he's asking, the clips that are on the pneumatic connectors for security in retaining the Bowden tube, are they the same as the collet clip that is on the E3D V6 heatsink? Absolutely it is.
They're similar, but they do come in different widths. So that's the only thing you have to watch for. And if you don't have one, well, you can 3D print them, actually. There's a whole bunch on Thingiverse that I printed before, and they work fine. They're not meant to be major compressive devices. They're just meant to prevent it from bouncing around. Now, if you watched our live stream last week, I actually tore down one of these little guys here to show the difference internally between the E3D collet and the Bowden connector, the screw-in type one. There are a little bit of a difference. But basically, the little collet retainer is more important on the E3D hot end than it is on your Bowden tube clips, as the clips themselves don't hold the Bowden tube in place. It's actually just held further down inside that assembly.
Yes, correct. And the second part of this question is, one other thing I'd like to ask is, what 32-bit board would you recommend to update my CR-10 V2 printer? If or when I choose to take on such an update. First and foremost, I believe that the V2 comes with a 32-bit board, does it not?
No, it doesn't. No.
Oh, it's still an 8-bit on the V2?
It's still, the 4.2, no, maybe not. Maybe it was the 2.2 board that one came with, which is the Atmel 18 Mega 825.
Oh, that's right. So, okay, you're right.
So, yeah, you just got to bear in mind the CR-10, there's two routes you can go. You can either go the easy upgrade or you can go the full upgrade. Now, the easy upgrade, you have to find a board that's a drop-in replacement, so items like the E3 Turbo, the E3 Dip that are designed for the Ender 3s, where you maybe just need a motor splitter for the Z. Or if you want to go for the bigger boards like I have with the SKR 1.4 Turbo, you're going to need to do some retrofits, probably removing the control box because it doesn't fit in there by default.
There you go. Okay, Jerry, have you got a question for us? She does, probably. There we go.
Oh.
From the Sanska? I always get that wrong. Is eSun ABS Plus any good? I bought the notorious Voron 2.4 for bot kit and need to now print the parts. ABS Plus is an annealable plastic, or it's supposed to be. Not all ABS PLA pluses are annealable, or they're annealable in a different type of temperature. We're going to cover annealing, and I know I keep saying this, but we are going to cover annealing very soon on the show, just to show you guys exactly how to do it. Now, ABS Plus, is it any good? I've never tried the eSun ABS Plus. I have tried their ABS. It's not bad. It's not great. I find it to be a little bit brittle. So if you want to do parts out of it that are going to be any good, I would probably use a higher strength ABS other than the eSun, because I do find it a bit brittle. Or even PETG.
Apparently, according to eSun, it is more suitable for printing objects with large corners. I don't know exactly what they mean by that, unless they mean it doesn't do well with small details. So if you're printing structural components, it may be fine, but if you're printing small detailed items, you might have a problem with it if they're advertising that right on their product page.
And we got another super chat.
Ooh.
Super chat.
Super chat.
We got everybody in the house doing it. From Henry Stofferin, he says, "Hello, Richard. Have you got a Big Tree Tech Mini E3 V2? Yes, I do. It's sitting in a machine upstairs. We put that into our Ender 3, and I think it's doing fine. Did you need some specific details on it? If you need to, Henry, just ask that question. We'll be happy to answer it for you. Jerry, what have you got?
Yeah, 2.0 boards a lot.
There we go. This is from Daryl Watts, our good friend. He says, when a printer says it prints either PLA or ABS, can the printer use other filaments? Sorry, I'm still a bit new to the printer world.
That is
Yes,
a great
it can.
question.
Actually, it
Honestly,
can.
not a lot of people ask that. Yeah.
However, be careful when it says it can print PLA or ABS. The reason I say that is because out of the box, most printers can obtain the temperatures that you need for ABS, but because they're open air printers, the problem that you're going to run into is that they won't print ABS very well because you'll get splitting, you'll get warping because of the ambient temperature around it. Now, you can avoid some of that by printing a shield, or draft shield is what it's called. Brian's done that. I've done that as well, using the Matter 3D filament. So that works out really well. But at the end of the day, you want to check that it will go up to the temperatures that you need. If you're trying to get into those higher temp plastics that are over, like, say, 260, then you're going to need to do an upgrade on your hot end, as well as you're going to need to do an upgrade on the thermistor and the heater cartridge. You may also have to put in so either a relay or a what do they call that thing? Skipping my mind. What's that, Brian?
MOSFET?
MOSFET, that's correct. You may have to put an inline MOSFET in. So that really is the way to go on that one.
Basically, if any of the materials have a printing temperature of under 240 degrees, give or take, and they don't say that they need an enclosure, you're probably fine to go. The only exception is when the actual composition of the plastic changes, when we have things like flexibles, because they bend more, and simply put, the stock extruder assembly is not really good at continuously routing it in the same direction, and often not, you'll find a piece has flown right off the top of your extruder assembly. So yeah, anything under 240, we've done most of it. The problem is when it's $60-$70 a kilo, we don't buy a reel just to try a couple inches of it, right? So we just kind of accrue what we get over time, which has mostly been PLA and PETG. But hey, there's not a lot of damage you can do to your machine if you keep it under 240. So if you want to buy a roll and try it, give it a go.
There you go.
And to answer Ben E. Brady's question, I would love to be still using my cadet, but somebody needs to do a cleaning or checking the hot end and doesn't want me to touch it. So maybe in the chat everyone could put a thumbs up and get him to fix it for me.
No. I said no.
Not today, Jerry.
She could just use a real printer.
I like it.
Yeah, there is something fun about having a tiny machine, I've always wanted to pick up one of those and just have them at my office desk just to be printing random things throughout the day, but
exactly.
I don't need
and
any more
it does
machines, clearly.
little prototypes of something. If you like the way the model looks, okay, I'm going to upgrade that and make it.
I'll tell you guys my mantra right now, I am not buying any more machines until I get at least 5 of them working where I want them to.
Well, it's funny because I took a machine out of a box the other day because some of mine need various parts and I haven't bought them yet. But with that being said, I took the machine out of the box, put it all together, and had to disassemble quite a bit of it because it looks like the one that I was sent was a repack.
Oh, no.
Or an Amazon return. And I had to do a little bit of surgery to get it to work. But it did print this dog, so it's printing well.
I guess this week's theme is don't blame your slicer.
That's right.
Because, it's mechanical issues can arise out of nowhere. And, with my machine, I know it's a little crooked. It always has been. And what I found out this week was that the 3D printed mount I made for linear rails underneath my printer wasn't perfectly square, so one of the rails has been a little unhappy for a while. So I'm still rejigging how I want to address that. But, it's a learning week, right? That's why we're still here. We're still learning.
All right, we've got one from Robert Perrin. He says, "Hi, guys. Very, very new to 3D print world. Been printing small things off Thingiverse. Anything you can recommend me studying up on?" Yes, there's lots of things. But let's first and foremost get you working with your slicer. The more you work with your slicer, the better off you're going to be. Your slicer is pretty much your start of any 3D printing project that you're going to do. Let's work with your slicer. If you're looking for more information about slicers, especially Cura, we've got several videos on our website under our tutorials. You can go and check those out. They will certainly help you. What else, Brian?
Nothing.
Nothing. Wow.
That's nothing. I got nothing today. I am beyond mad with my printers, guys. So I'm more than happy to answer your questions today, but I'm ready to take a 2x4 to that machine behind me.
All right then.
What's going on here? I'm doing another teardown of the E3 of the smart filament sensor. I've seen lots of various opinions lately on this, so I wanted to give a more informative approach than even though my first video covered the electronics. We're going to try and do some improvements to this, so stay tuned for that video. Apart from that, really, it's going to be building on those slicer fundamentals that we've been pushing out. And if you haven't been seeing our videos, we're trying to cover slicers outside the norm. We're not trying to deal with Cura right now. We're not trying to deal with Simplify 3D, just because we want to show you guys there are more options out there.
Yeah.
And since every machine is different, you may find a slicer works better for you and not for another.
There you go. Just so you guys know, coming up this week on Saturday, this coming Saturday, you're going to learn how to put back together your hot end. I did a total breakdown and rebuild of a hot end, and you're going to learn how to do that coming up this Saturday. Then we're going to jump back into our slicer tutorials, giving you different options other than Cura. All right, so we got one here from the Scarecrow. The Scarecrow, by the way, is one of our newest members. Welcome to the club.
Welcome. Thank you for joining.
He says, I'm thinking about printing carbon fiber filament. What do you need to do to print that and achieve that? Or have your printer achieve that? Well, first and foremost with carbon fiber, it depends on what carbon fiber you're using. Brian's holding up an all-metal nozzle there. I believe that's titanium.
Stainless steel for this one here. So,
okay.
Yeah, you're going to need one of these. Simply put, any abrasive filament will wear away at your nozzle with the brass nozzle. How do you tell if it's brass? Well, if it's not silver looking, it's probably brass. So, there are tungsten carbide ones out there and all that, but at the end of the day, you do have to get yourself a better quality nozzle, even if it's the same size.
Yeah.
Because the abrasive filament, and if you haven't seen how abrasive even PLA is, take a look at your extruder assembly on the back end side, and you're probably going to see a groove starting to wear in there, unless you printed a bearing offset to keep it feeding directly into there. But basically, even PLA over time can etch through steel. So these stainless steel nozzles are more wear resistant than your standard brass nozzle, but that's not to say it won't wear down over time. Carbon fiber is very rough on the system, so bear that in mind.
Some of the things that you're going to have to consider, let me get that into camera. Now, this is one that leaked on me, obviously, because I didn't do my due diligence, but what you got to consider is that this, which is your throat, your block, and your nozzle, should all, in my opinion, should all be matching materials. So if this is stainless steel, that should be stainless steel, and that should be stainless steel. Now, when it comes to the nozzle, you can go up to tungsten carbide. You can go up to, what is the other one? There's another one, very common one out there, and I can't remember what it is.
Are you talking about the Bloody Olsen rubies, or are you talking about...
Oh, God, no. Not the Olsen rubies.
There's tungsten carbide, there's hardened steel.
Hardened steel. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ones, yeah.
So when all of that works in concert, you will be able to print other quality or higher quality materials. Then you have to change, of course, this. Right now, this is just your standard heater cartridge. You may have to go up to a better heater cartridge. And of course, you're going to need a thermistor that will take that over as well.
Yeah, the thermistor there is rated, you can get a roughly accurate reading up to about 260, and then after that, it just goes right out the window. That's why people are looking at thermocouples and We could talk about the differences in the technology, but it's really not important for you guys. The fact is, most thermistors will cap out around 320 degrees, give or take. So, again, if you're getting into higher material, you're probably jumping up into the 500 degrees Celsius hot ends if you're really going up there. Really, a nozzle is usually good enough for the abrasives.
Now, I really like how Jerry went and slipped this one in. Richard, you should do a video on showing how to fix Jerry's printer.
Yes.
How much time you guys got? You know?
Yeah.
If we're going to do one like that, we need to launch a second channel and use that to get our watch hours up, because it's going to be a 9-hour video.
Yeah.
You're not funny.
Oh, I am indeed funny.
Almond Baines is saying we will have one shortly by April 1st.
For a Calgary distributor, yes. And Almond, if you're listening, don't do anything April 1st. Please don't do something April 1st. That always backfires for us.
April Fools.
Yeah, make it April 2nd.
There you go. Almond just told me they got their first sale on their website. Congratulations.
That's awesome. I can't wait. I've been trying to stage this website for them, and I will be putting in an order right away myself. So, congratulations to whoever beat me.
All right, then Zeka is asking, have any of you replaced the X-axis V-slot wheels, say on the Ender 3V2, with a linear rail setup? I have not. Brian, you have.
Yeah, I've done a couple of them. The X-axis doesn't really need it, to be honest with you guys. The V-slot wheels back and forth are pretty solid. The Y gantry, yeah, it can benefit from linear rails, but you have to do load balancing. So eventually, when I get around to this BLV kit video here, what I found was the linear rails were not manufactured nearly as good as a Highwind, and so even with it screwed down, your bed has a tiny bit of play that you can almost wiggle it like a bad bearing on a vehicle. So, are you really going to gain much? Well, I'm almost moving back to V-slot wheels, to be honest with you guys. And the reason is the linear rails are quite noisy if they're not perfectly aligned. And if you've 3D printed parts for it and your bed wasn't perfectly aligned in the first place, then you're going to have blips. Oh, I think I just had a connection blip myself.
Oh, there you go.
But, yeah, I would say it's a neat kit to have, but it's kind of you're not really going to gain much. Now, I think where you would gain benefit is changing out the Z gantry, changing out those wheels to linear rails, because then you're providing a much straighter path up. You don't have to deal with 2 sets of eccentric nuts, and we're going to look at that a little bit moving forward here. It's just not right on my roster at the moment. Now,
in the chat, I've just noticed a couple of things here. Guys, if you're going to buy the Matter 3D filament, please do a temperature tower.
Yes.
If you don't have your machine dialed in and you're getting stringing, it's not the material, it's your settings, okay? And if you don't do a temperature tower, you've got nobody to blame but yourself if you're having problems printing things. Just want to make that clear.
No, you should always do a temperature tower batch to batch. And the reason why we did this is because the ABS starts printing nicely around 270. Bear that in mind. Some other ABSs might be 240, so you might be saying, it's clogging my hot end. No. And this is where we get into this virgin material that we've been talking so much about, is that most of the time companies add an additive to the filament to reduce its melting point.
Yep.
And to make that into an analogy, for those of you who deal with a lot of snow, you throw salt on the ground to lower the freezing point of ice so that it melts into water. And that's kind of the same philosophy with PLA, is a lot of these companies that add additives do it to bring it down to a lower melting point. Now, since this is very virgin material, that little benefit is not included in lieu of instead having a more virgin material. So you're going to have to bake it a little hotter, but it's going to be more robust at those lower temperature points. It's not going to melt at your 60 degrees, 70 degrees. And that's what we're going to try and show here in the near future, is what that means for you.
Yeah. All right, Greg's Vintage Workshop says if you choose like 60 degrees on supports, does that mean it generates supports for anything over a 60-degree angle? Yes.
Yeah, that's the magic overhang angle percentage. If it's greater than that, it's putting supports there. Honestly, unless you've got really good cooling on your hot end, I never recommend going above 45. 60, you're going to have a lot of drooping. And then, the other thing too is if you do want to achieve an angle like that, then you have to start dropping your hot end temperature. We're going to go a little more into detail with the properties of each type of filament soon, because there are things, that are now obvious to us, but not to others, such as PETG is terrible at bridging.
Yes.
It's beautifully for everything else, but if you try and do a bridge, it is not going to do the same things as PLA. So we're going to show you why.
Hey, we got another super chat.
Super chat.
Super chat. Oh yeah.
This is from the Scarecrow. He says, "Thanks for the info, you guys. Great. I have learning a lot for my Ender 3 Pro and CR10 are printing great, so I would get a third printer for carbon fiber." Great. Excellent.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Now, again, the question's going to be, why do you want to print carbon fiber filament? And we want to kind of cover all these in a different video, but the carbon fiber, what you got to understand is they've just taken the carbon nanotubes and blended it in with PLA to give it a more reinforced structure.
Correct.
Now, honestly, we don't have the equipment to do tests like this, so we rely on channels like CNC Kitchen to do the work for us. But have a look up at the videos with between him and Tom Sandlander there about strength of filaments, because you might find that something like PETG is actually stronger at the end of the day than carbon fiber filament in certain circumstances.
Now you got to remember, when it comes to carbon fiber, you're not getting the weave that you would if you were laying down and glassing carbon fiber. Those fibers are embedded into the plastic, so they're not going to give you a weave for strength, which carbon fiber actually does. So be aware of that. It may be a little bit more brittle. It looks great because it's very matte, but at the end of the day, it may not hold up to what you're asking it to do. Rob Person, he says, Rob Perron. He says, sorry, temperature tower? First hearing of that. A temperature tower, and we've got several videos out on this. A temperature tower is
chat, by the way,
just a gauge. I'm sorry? Did I miss one?
Oh, I posted our original video to the chat.
Oh, okay. Great.
How to print a temperature tower, if you don't know.
Yeah, this is a temperature tower, and what it shows you is where you're getting your best bridging, where you're getting your best layer adhesion, where you're getting your sharpest corners, how it's handling those overhangs, and where the best temperature is for that layer adhesion. And because of this one, I like this one because it's got numbers marked on it, but the one that we're going to come up with is going to be very generic, so you can use it with any material, and you'll just set those in whatever slicer you're using. So yeah, that's what this shows. And in this case, this is actually a really good one, but the best adhesion that I'm getting and the best bridging was right around 215, and this is the Matter 3D white filament, so which is the same as what I did the dog in, the Matter 3D white, and the lights are blowing them out here a little bit, but it is super smooth. Like this thing, there's literally no flaws in it.
Yeah, it came out quite nice. It's a nice material there.
From Kawasaki ZK14 Jomamamoto. Okay. Wow, that's a mouthful. Do you have any issues with PETG warping? I print PETG in an enclosure with bed temperature at 80 degrees and no fan, but after a while the corners lift up, and I'll tell you why. Because the enclosure is keeping in so much heat. PETG is a material that really shouldn't be printed in an enclosure. It should be printed on an open air printer, and you'll find that what's going to happen is it's going to not shrink as much. What brand are you using? That could be a factor as well. So that's something to take a look at. But normally I wouldn't print PETG in an enclosure. I've never had PETG warp.
I've 80 does seem a little low. But
80 on the bed?
Yeah.
That's what I always print mine at.
And again, this goes back into the properties of it, and I'd have to triple check it again, but I believe PETG likes to cool very slowly. So the more you can slow down that cooling, the better. And usually the easiest thing you can do is raise your temperatures so that it doesn't go into that transition range for a longer period of time. I'm curious what your enclosure temperature actually is.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that too. Hey, we got another super chat.
Super chat.
Dominic Versita, regarding my question above, it was the heat sink fan that failed, not the hot end fan.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
When the heat sink fan fails, you're going to get travel heat creep up through your hot end. You're going to need to change that. And I would change that to a ball bearing. Remind me again, Dominic, what printer you have.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you guys, I placed an order with DigiKey this week. I know a lot of people talk about different fans, but if you are going to buy a good quality fan, Sunon is definitely the way to go. This company, these maglevs and the Vapo bearings and all that, they are dead silent and they give you good airflow. We've never recommended the Noctuas because even though they are great quality fans for computer cases and they're extremely silent, part of that silent is a reduced CFM airflow rating, and with a 3D printer, your goal is to get as much static pressure and air through those heat areas to reduce the transition range to a very small amount. So make sure you buy a good quality fan, and we'll cover the CFMs again when we start doing these hot end fixes and so forth. The ones I'm currently running on my machine are about 7 to 8 CFM, so use that as a baseline. And look at the DBM rating, and that's how I spec mine. I said, I want a 40-40 fan. I want it to be as quiet as possible, and I think they came in around 25 dBA, and I made sure that the airflow was adequate. Yeah, Jerry's saying the 40 by 20 Noctua, the thick ones. Yeah, those are not bad fans. They're still not great, though. I mean, the problem with the 40-20 is the 20 is 20 millimeters thick versus your regular 10, so you have to squeeze that into your hot end assembly. But if you have a third-party one, it's easy enough.
Eric Muir, he says, does anyone have experience with Keen Village Plastics? I'm looking at their performance PLA and was wondering if someone had used it before. I have not. Mileage is going to vary depending on, whether or not you do one of these. And I'm going to keep going back to that temperature tower because I want to ingrain that in everybody's mind, regardless of what plastic you're using. If you're new to it, do a temperature tower. If you're finding you're getting problems with it later on down the line, do a temperature tower. Change the color, do a temperature tower. Change materials, PLA to PETG, do a temperature tower. I can't say this strongly enough that this is going to save you a lot of aggravation, and this will also save you the fact that if the material is flowing and it's making this, it's not the material. It usually is something between the printer and the settings that you've set the slicer to. Okay?
Yeah, and the other thing we say too is, we're the kind of guys that we throw a roll on the machine and we run it until we're out. If you're a person that goes and swaps your filaments often, get your reel in, run your temperature tower, determine your results, and then take a piece of masking tape or painter's tape, stick it on the side of the reel, and write down your preferred setting. Yeah. That way you don't have to do it again when you pull it out of the bucket 6 months down the road.
There you go. That's actually a great tip. I should start doing that.
Yeah, well, again, I'm the person that once it's on the machine, it ain't coming off till it's empty.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I print everything till the reel's done.
We'll start getting into exotics again and switching them around. I've got some PETG behind me, and I might need to start doing some ABS on these machines because I had a thermal runaway on the Wanhao. So,
Cord XTC says, question, I know you guys have recommended the Swiss all-metal hot end, but what's your thoughts on the Big Tree all-metal hot end for use with the Ender 3? Big Tree hasn't sent me one yet. They were supposed to send me a whole bunch of stuff, which they said is in the mail, and I have not seen it yet. So I'm still waiting. I am going to contact them now that they're back from holidays.
We had that dip there, and for all you asking questions about, have we tried X product or Y product? I'll give you a bit of an idea here. We're in Canada, and we maybe get what you guys down south get like 6 months after the fact, unless we order it from AliExpress. And our postal system is in an absolute sham here right now. So anything I order, even with rush shipping, I'm looking at 1 to 2 months right now. So unfortunately, I need to rely on, especially when it comes to filament, I'll need to rely on you guys to give me your impressions of these filaments that we just simply cannot get up here.
Yeah. There's a lot of filaments we've used, like Kodak and Filaments.ca's house brand. We've had Form Futura we've used.
Sunlu. We've used AMZ 3D. We've used
eSun.
Yeah. We've tried pretty much everything cheap on the Canadian market, truth be told.
Yeah, just about anything we can get in Canada we've tried. The only ones I haven't tried, which I want to try, is Protopasta. I've tried Ninja Flex, it works great, but I'd like to try Protopasta.
Yeah, and our good friend Tim at DeWitt 3D gave me a roll of Prushiment to try, so I'm excited to try that. But I don't want to put that onto a machine until I've dialed it in with a different filament, and then I want to compare them side by side.
Now, we do get products from distributors all the time, but we don't get all the products. So that sometimes we have to go out and buy it. And if we do, that's where the super chats come in very handy. And also all of you that are members and all of those people that are thinking about becoming members, that helps to support the show so that we can bring you brand new content, talk about new products that are on the market, stuff that we can get in, that we can get here in Canada. So your super chats do help an awful lot. Next question, Jerry.
Jerry was just talking 3D printing and paint and talking about 3D Solutech. I loved 3D Solutech. I loved their silver, but I just haven't ordered it in a long, long time. So,
Mark L. Baker. Oh, wow, we haven't seen him in a while. What causes a 3D print to split in the middle and fall apart? Could it be because by the grid pattern or choosing the S3D slicer? Thanks. I think what you're getting at is it splits somewhere in the middle, but at the end of the day, I think what you're probably getting there is a weak point, which would be caused by under extrusion. Brian?
Yeah. Splitting in the middle, falling apart. There can be a whole boatload of different reasons for that, but usually for me, I find I'm running the infill too quickly because I try to cheat the system, and then the infill is very weak on the inside. Now, when you say split, Mark, do you mean like even the outer walls of split? I'd love to see a photo of that, to be honest with you. Maybe post it on the Facebook group, and we'll take a look at it. But
yes.
Usually, if you're splitting, the only time I've seen splitting happen majorly was with ABS, where you printed too cool and it cooled too rapidly.
Yeah.
Again, materials, it's a science, and Amin here in the chat will gladly tell everybody all the material science questions you ever have, because he's way above it for me. But at the end of the day, you're trying to fuse a material back to itself, right? And there's two methods out there. There's a chemical-based adhesion, and then there's a material-based adhesion where you basically melt it and rejoin it to itself. And that's what we're trying to do, is melt these plastics to themselves, but cool it rapidly enough that it maintains its form, rather than letting gravity take over and pull the molten material down before it cools. And that's what this is. It's a big race, really. So that's why we always talk about fine-tuning your settings and fine-tuning your printer, is because the environment impacts that, the way you built your machine impacts that, and the materials you use impact that. So there's simply no standard answer that this works perfect for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Next question, Jerry.
Wait a second.
Jerry Knapp wants us to move to the U.S.
Someday.
The Prusa MK3S uses a 24-volt Noctua fan for the heatsink cooling, I believe. That is new to me. Why not buy that one? It's pricey, but $20, about $20, I think. Does the S use that?
I'd have to look into it. Okay, so I need to, let's see if I can find the spec for you guys. You know, when I'll tell you why I talk carefully about Noctuas. Is there are two types of them out there. Let me see if I can bring this up for you.
I'm going to take this right over to Brian.
Remember when Brian actually had screens set up for this stuff? There we go. That'll do. Wow, you can't read diddly squat on that feed. That's awesome. Nope. So what we've got here is we've got the Noctua fan. The noise level, which again you guys can barely read, is 14.5 or 14.9 dB. So it's about half the volume of a standard fan. And this one here, I don't think they actually spec'd out the CFM because Noctua is European. So when you try to find their airflow on their official site, I believe they give it in, instead of cubic feet per minute, they give it on a different number that you have to convert. So if we look at specifications here, yeah, so they say airflow is 9.4 cubic meters per hour. So we need to convert cubic meters per hour to CFM. Thank goodness Google has like quick searches to find this stuff. So if they're saying 9.4 cubic meters per hour, that comes out to 5.5 cubic feet per minute, okay? That's a little low, to be honest. Now, I trust Joseph Prusha does his research, and he knows the CFM rating for a hot end. But I know when I put this on Creality machines, I have had problems, even with the 20 mil. The 10 mil more so had a lot more issues because it was just on the fringes. This one, because the 20 mil is the thickness of the fan here. So if you can see front to back there, that thickness is 20 millimeters. So if that fits in your assembly, because the blades are longer, every rotation moves a lot more air than the 10 millimeter equivalent. So if you are looking for a 10 millimeter thick fan, 40-40, you're not going to get the proper airflow for your hot end. But if you go with the 20, your mileage may vary, simply put. I did not have much luck myself. So that's kind of like the crash on fans. So
I'm looking at it now, and it looks like they are using the extra silent Noctua fan on the S.
Is that does it look wide, like a 20 millimeter?
They don't. I can't see any pictures of it, but
okay.
They do state it in their marketing material. So
yeah, good on them. Good on them. You know, Noctuas are great fans. It's just they're not really designed for this purpose, where static air pressure is a very important factor. So I'm just saying your mileage may vary. If you're going away from Noctuas there, as I said, this brand Sunon is very reputable, and they have these Vapo bearings, and this one here is a maglev, which is for magnetic levitation. So these are very, very silent fans, you know, and these, I paid $15, I think, for between $7 or $15 Canadian, and DigiKey offers next day shipping for $8 flat. So if you're going to buy some fans, spec it out on there.
Here we go. He says, I want to thank you for all your help and advice. You guys have solved a lot of headaches and pain and suffering through the trial and error. Again, thank you so much. Well, thank you, Kawasaki. I'm just going to say
thank
Kawasaki.
I don't like people making the same mistakes I made, because that's all I do is make mistakes with 3D printing. I'm the experimenter. So
hey, I still make lots of mistakes.
Yeah,
I just don't talk about them because I want to seem perfect.
Yeah, so do I. Trust me. You guys can see my face about how displeased I was with that Benchy in that video.
Pure Life says he just got booted from chat. Why?
What?
Something wrong with that.
Maybe I hit the wrong button? I don't think so. I was trying to hit a setting there. Sorry, bud. Hopefully, yeah. Let us know if it happens again, and we will look into that.
There we go. Hey, listen, if you're thinking about becoming a member, there's a little button down there that says join. We haven't started doing after shows yet, but we will soon. We're just trying to work that out, the best way to do it. At the end of the day, again, members help us monthly, and it helps us to get in things like, what do I got here? Like hot ends. Here's one that I'm rebuilding. Another one. You know.
Something to fix the cadet.
Yeah, things to fix printers, boards, stuff like that. So it does go a long way for your helping us, and we do appreciate that very much. Okay, Amin and Gary T are having a conversation, so I'm going to leave that alone. Let's go to Chris Bignall. He says, been thinking about getting into resin printing, but it seems there's a lot of hazards, especially with kids wanting to help. Is there a difference in quality, really worth it, or just stick with FDM? For now, the difference in quality is amazing. Here's a print done in resin. Come on, focus. There we go. There's a print done in resin. So the quality, there is a huge difference. However, the post-processing is messy. And at the end of the day, would I introduce my kids to resin printing? Not unless they were in their teens and a little bit more responsible. If you have young kids, I would say no. Hey, we got a super chat from Joseph Jolly. Thank you very much.
Super chat. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would just stick with FDM for now, Brian. You got any opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, resin's got its place, right? But it does require a lot of cleanup. And I never, I don't have kids, so I never brought the kid factor into it. That yes, you need to keep them away from it. Number one, because the vapors probably aren't very good for youth. And the other issue more so is that if they bump into it, it can be a very messy cleanup. And luckily enough, I haven't had to find the best way to clean up resin off a floor or off a carpet or anything like that. I think you're just going to be having a losing battle with that. Resin is amazing for a couple different reasons. Number one, its dimensional accuracy is always going to be on point because the screen is a fixed size. So if you need something dimensionally accurate that's very small, you can do that. Number two, the resolution's like 10 microns, right? So the detail is just absolutely stunning. Just like Richard showed there, his model looked like something you have pulled out of a really good casting, really. It's nice and clean. Now, build volume is reduced. The liquid, it does take a lot of cleanup time afterwards, between rinsing off the unused resin and scrubbing and all that. And up here in Canada, we're lucky enough to have very, very well UV-coated windows, so there's no risk of UV exposure leaking into the house and curing any resin that's loose around. We have seen some people that have spilled it on them, and basically they get a chemical burn once they're exposed to UV light. It has nothing at all to do with the stuff being acidic or anything. It has to do with it on their arms. And so, it's just a safety factor. So Richard's going to show close up here the difference between our best FDM print on hand and resin.
So you can see here, this is an FDM print. The dog is an FDM print. And this, again, was done with that Matter 3D White PLA, Performance White. And this is the Aqua Blue Phrozen resin. You can see the detail is a lot cleaner. But again, like Brian was saying, there is a lot of post-processing. So you're going to be dealing with chemicals, like isopropyl alcohol. You're going to have to wear gloves, masks, that sort of thing. You want to make sure that your kids have eye protection. Actually, you should have eye protection as well, because if any of this stuff splashes into your eyes, you're going to be going to the hospital. So I would personally, for the resolution that you can get out of FDM for what you're doing right now, I would stick with FDM. Now, with resin, you also have smaller build volumes, so that's something to consider as well. And resin can be brittle over time. If you don't know what you're doing with resin, you can get cracks in your resin because you haven't, you've done too thick a piece. But at the end of the day, FDM can give you some really nice results depending on whether you've got your printer dialed in or not. And again, this one was printed at 0.1 millimeters per layer height. So, that's a pretty clean print. And this was printed at 30 microns, so 0.03. So there, night and day between the differences, but again, this one here is going to take a lot more to get it cleaned up than this one will. So,
yeah, Ben Brady's got a point. Unless you spend a lot more money on a resin printer, you're not going to get a bigger build volume.
Yeah, that's
Just
correct.
keep an eye on the market, though, because everything is changing in the resin market, like week by week right now. There's a reason I'm sticking with my Elegoo Mars and not doing any upgrades until I see what's coming out in the next 6 months, basically.
Now, World Planet Gadget is asking, I have an Ender 3 Pro, but would like to buy a resin because I see that the prints are so beautiful for average figures. But I'm actually a bit afraid of the products used for that. Is that not true? Do you need to be afraid? No. You just have to handle them with care. That's the big thing. And make sure that you clean off excess resin. Like with this piece here that I was showing earlier, I'm going to go back to it here. Let me just cut back and make sure that Brian can be heard. You can see there's some shiny areas. There's some really bright shiny areas here. That's where I didn't get all the resin off before I cured this piece. So that's excess resin. Okay, and you're going to see that like in areas where it is super shiny. That is because I wasn't able to get all the resin out of there, or I didn't do a good job. Now I'll use a toothbrush, a soft bristle toothbrush, to get in there and clean all this out, and then before I go and cure it. And before you cure it, make sure that all of the alcohol has evaporated off your print, because if you try and do it while there's alcohol on it, you could get splits in your piece or little defects that may show up.
Yeah, resin, it's a different art, really. If you are printing figures, I won't lie to you, nothing beats resin right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, for mechanical parts, the resin is kind of useless, to be honest, at this stage, and it's because of the nature of UV curing. You have to be aware that you have to cure it at the end, and then even then you can still potentially cure after the fact, and that's where we're seeing the biggest issues right now in the market. Is a lot of people are buying water washable resins, not rinsing it off properly, and then when they cure it, it seems fine, but when they leave it out in the sun, they're actually exploding because the material on the inside didn't cure and begins to swell with the heat.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to my overhead here real quick. Now, this is a piece that I've been test painting. We're no longer doing this project, but so I don't have to finish test painting it. But at this stage, this will accept paint really well. You can see there's the original color underneath, but this will accept paint really well. And this is just acrylic paint. So that's another nice thing about printing in resin, is that you don't have to do a lot of prep work for the paint. You will have to give it a quick sand, but you don't have to use really coarse paper like you would with an FDM print.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jerry, we've got time for a couple more questions. I know she's got a few coming up.
Yeah, I can show off my next benchy attempt to show you guys. I'm having one of those weeks. Now, this was because I set the temperature too low for the second layer, and as it dribbled down going up the boat, it started to fail on its seam lines there. But you can see it's the same machine, same print file as before. I just have, again, some tweaks to do to it. So welcome to Tweak Sunday.
Gary Tarasoff makes a great point here. Says, I have a can of compressed air to clean out small holes and surfaces or features in my resin prints. The surface tension of the resin and alcohol holds it in small holes. You're absolutely right about that. And using a little bit of compressed air will get that out of there. If you've got a compressor near you, like from your airbrush, I use my airbrush sometimes. I'll just turn it on and
just be careful. We do talk a lot about safety because we don't want you to accidentally have it back spurt through a conical hole and spray it towards it. So make sure you're doing it with glasses or I don't really need it, but I've been tempted to do one of those projects where you drill 2 holes in the side of a Rubbermaid bin, put some gloves in there, and then you have yourself basically a working chamber.
Yeah.
But it's just be smart, guys. That's the main thing about this stuff is it's not dangerous, but you still have to use it safely. There is risk of hurting yourself.
Do we have any more questions, Jerry?
Yeah.
No.
Well, fine. Good for you guys. All your printers are working great. Don't need us anymore. I'm out of here.
I just upgraded my hot end from the Kingaroo KP3, and now after a week of printing, it says error nozzle temp at 389. You
so
may be exceeding.
Thermistor.
Yeah, you may be exceeding what the thermistor can handle.
Well, if you upgrade the hot end, if the cable's loose, I'm trying to remember. Okay, so a dead open wire, it'll go to -14, okay? If it is shorted, namely if the 2 leads are touching at any point in there, then it will go to max temp, which, when you said 389, it clicked a thing in my head because I always see this on the monoprice groups with the Select Mini, is if it has a delayed thermal runaway timer, you're going to see a temperature maxing out. So a thermistor is a resistor that the resistance changes as the temperature changes, and basically the resistance drops as it gets hotter. So if you short it, it treats it like there's no resistance, which is the highest temperature, 389. If you unplug it, and normally if you unplug your thermistor, you're going to get a thermal runaway, but if you do it when the printer is not being told to heat up, you're going to see it drops to -14. So that it sounds like your wires are too close together somewhere, which is great, because that one's a little easier to fix versus the broken wire, which is actually soldering. So take a look down right at your hot end where you screwed in your thermistor, and look to see you might have actually over-tightened your thermistor wires and shorted them with the screw if it's one of the screw-in ones.
Okay, so we've got a question here from Greg's Vintage Workshop. He says, on my new Rock 3 Pro, how tight do I need to turn the thumb screw on the direct drive extruder? Obviously too loose and it'll slip. What happens if it's too tight? Here I'm going to give you my secret for getting the right tension on that particular extruder. What I do is I turn it all the way in till it stops. Then I mark a line with a Sharpie. I'm sure I've got a Sharpie around here somewhere. I did. Don't now. But take a Sharpie and mark a line straight up and down where it stopped. Then you're going to back it off 2 turns, 2 full revolutions. And I found that gives you exactly what you need for most of the filaments that you're going to put through there. Because it's a Bond, basically it's a Bondtech clone is what it is. And we'll take one more before we wrap things up.
I was just grabbing some parts here to show you guys too. The problem with over-tightening it is, this is a bad example because this one doesn't apply as much, but if you look at a dual gear extruder here, where the filament goes through, you can see that tiny little set of treads in there. And what happens is that's what grips against the filament. Now, if you have one of these ones here where you have the little brass piece in there, the teeth are definitely much sharper, closer to the bottom actually than they are on the top. And when you grip it way too hard, you're actually going to grip into the filament, which theoretically actually changes your steps per millimeter, because now it takes more steps to move the filament further because you've shoved it into there. So, I mean, it's better to be tighter than loose, but just be aware if your printing properties start changing, you may want to just back off that screw just a little more.
There you go. So the last question we have, can you recommend a good resin for mechanical parts? I've not printed any mechanical parts in resin, but there is ABS resin out there. That's what I would look at first.
They call it ABS-like resin, right? Because it's got properties similar to ABS, but doesn't.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what you use resin for, okay? You use resin to make a mold for a product like this. Liquid rubber, smooth on. This is Smooth Seal 945. I've been using this to create some silicone spacers for my printer, and we're going to be looking at those in a few weeks here. But for now, the best way to use resin is to use your resin's detail to make a mold in a product like this, and then pour with something stronger, like because then you can buy a 2-part resin to put into the mold versus a single part resin, which is UV curable. And so if you get a 2-part, then it's going to be UV resistant, which if you're doing outdoor parts is a big thing. We're going to get a bit into casting. Truth be told, like these kits here alone are about $50-$60, so I don't have too many of them. But if you guys would like to see a video on casting, I'll go out and see what consumer grade resins I can pick up for you.
There you go. All right, thank you everyone for your questions today. If we didn't get to your question, we do apologize. We only have so much time in a day.
Yes.
We want to thank all of our members once again, and you guys help us, and all of those people that helped us out with Super Chat today. That is a definite bonus to getting us some printers fixed here. And we will see you guys again on Tuesday for our members. We've got a new tip of the week coming, and I will get it out on Tuesday this week, not Wednesday. And so you guys will get a new tip. How are you guys liking those tips, by the way? Do you like them? Do you think they're worth it? Would you like them to be longer? What would you like? Leave that in the comments after the episode today. Or after this live stream, you go down and put them in the comments. We also would like you to hit that like button. It helps us out tremendously. If you got something out of today's video, if you're new here today, please consider subscribing. If you're not subscribed yet, that also goes to helping us out. We are less than 100 new members or new subscribers away from hitting our next milestone of 25,000 subscribers. So get the word out there for us if you would. We do appreciate that. And we're going to see you guys here next week, right here on Sunday afternoon, 12 noon. So for now, I'm going to say bye.
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 Jerry's going to say bye, and we will see you guys next week. Remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print.
Bye for now.
Your bandwidth was